because you were living in Chicago for a long time. Like, it's your hometown, and because I became aware of your work, thankfully through Mad Matt's from Local Talk. He introduced me to you like several years ago, and he was like, someone to watch and look out for, and even at that time, I was trying to find like opportunities. And I think like at the time there was like a Japanese tour happening, and I was trying to connect some dots for you in Dubai and around the region at the time. And it wasn't until several years later that when I was working with the team at Barbary that you came over and did that show. Yeah. And that was where I got to see you play as well. And so where I was getting at is like from your early days in the residencies in Chicago, like I've always kind of identified you as being this sort of DJ that was kind of like passing the torch from the guys before you. Like you were in that sort of generation. So like after Frankie Knuckles and other people around that time. Am I correct by saying that? Like, would that be a correct assumption?
Well, I wouldn't say like passing the torch, but what I would say is there's especially like regarding Chicago and Chicago history for so long, it's been almost like this one narrative that's been shared over and over again. And the most important generation that took it to another level is like my generation and like some of those right before me. So the most crucial period that really made damage worldwide even more was the 90s. And it's like they really don't talk about that a lot. And I feel that sometimes some of these people who have been controlling this narrative won't talk about that period and the real movers and shakers of that period is because they weren't relevant then. And as well, it was on a whole nother level. So I came up as well when I discovered like the Milwaukee Avenue loft party scene. So that would be like, I was at some parties where it was like the most incredible lineup where you had Derek Carter, Diz, Mark Farina, all these guys throwing down at a loft party. And that was a whole nother generation that it's like during that time as well, then the raves kicked up because a lot of people don't know that the US rave scene started in the Midwest. We're the ones who started it. And it was a big, big scene and it carried over a lot of states, and a lot of these main players who were rocking it were all from the Midwest, especially Chicago and Detroit. And it's like they don't talk about that, a lot. And even with the very historical part of the roots of this, they still only talk about a few people. And it was really a citywide movement and a street DJ movement and an underground movement connected. It wasn't just one radio station that made it work. So, it really connects with the same kind of way that New York hip hop history came about, from the street DJs, the block parties, the house parties, all of that, this break culture, all of that. It was the same thing in Chicago, but the difference was our breaks were disco. It wasn't just soul and funk. And Chicago is a very, we've always been a dance city. So it's like we've had a dance scene happening in Chicago well before Frankie Knuckles got there. There was a scene. Ron Hardy was DJing at Den 1 in 1974. So it's like they make this narrative out like Chicago had tumbleweeds and things blowing down the street. We were just a bunch of country hicks. We didn't know how to party. We didn't know how to get down. And that's not, that's not it. So it's like there's so many other, things that could be countered to the same story and narrative that has been spoken so long. But to me, it's like I learned from watching the gods in this. I experienced this as a teenager. I experienced it before the world got it. So I come up in this culture, but as well, I come up in the culture from the other side of the booth first. I was a dancer and a partier before I really started, playing and, participating in the culture in that way. And even well until when I was still doing, starting to do my thing, I still went out to party because that's how you had to go find out what was the hot new shit, So the 90s period with casual, with all of these labels just kicking ass, you can't deny that. And it's like within probably the past, and it's a shame, but probably within the past 10 years or so, now they're talking about the 90s era, which is really a very critical and important time of Chicago, because some of these people who are still out here today, legends now, excuse me, legends now and legends of, producers, artists, they're still out here now. And they're connected to the Chicago sound. And it's like this Chicago sound is not just about this one period from 1984 to 1987. It went in a whole nother direction because technology also changed. And as well, because my generation and like the one before me, we kind of flipped it and did our own thing. I still feel that, sometimes the same narrative is pushed because some people are left out of the mix, and it's sad, but that's one thing that I've also been down to champion is to share, the culture and the history from my perspective, because it's also coming from a perspective from someone who was in it and knee deep in it, so it's like I can share my personal experiences with this because I was in it. I wasn't in it because it was trendy or whatever. I was in this culture because this is what spoke out to me. So as well, I take it upon myself now to help share my experiences and as well be a positive representative of the city where I'm from. I'm not from Chirac. I'm from Chicago. I'm not going to ever co-sign that Chirac shit because a lot of people don't know that that's glamorizing madness and bullshit. And I've had to check so many people, even over here on this side, to hear from Chicago, and instantly because they're all into, like the whole drill rap scene and all that sound. And, like, oh, you from Chirac? And I'm like, no, I'm from Chicago. And, then when I explain to them, that this stuff that that you think is cool on these records, what's really going on from this, and then they're like, oh, I didn't see that or know that, yeah, it might seem cool to you, because you're in a safe, comfortable place, but it's not cool to the people that are in these environments and have to deal with the fallout from these rap beefs and things that end up going to the streets. And innocent people and children sometimes end up being the casualties from this.